The October sunrise painted the Boston skyline in shades of amber and rose as Nora Bennett-Sterling stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows of their penthouse apartment. She held a steaming cup of coffee in both hands, watching the city wake up below. Behind her, she heard the familiar sound of her husband's footsteps approaching. Vincent Sterling wrapped his arms around her waist from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. They stood like that for a moment, two silhouettes against the awakening city, completely content in the simple act of being together. After 8 years of marriage, these quiet moments still felt like magic to Nora. "Good morning, beautiful," Vincent murmured, pressing a kiss to her temple. "What are you thinking about?" Nora smiled, leaning back into his embrace. "I was just thinking how lucky we are. 8 years and I still get butterflies when you walk into a room." Vincent chuckled, that warm, rich sound that had first captured her heart when they met at a charity auction years ago. Back then, he was a rising entrepreneur with a dream to revolutionize sustainable technology. She was a struggling architect, trying to make her mark in the competitive world of commercial design. They had built their empires side by side, cheering each other through every victory and setback. "Well, Mrs. Sterling," he said, turning her around to face him. "I hope you still have butterflies because I plan to keep you falling in love with me every single day for the next 80 years. Nora laughed, standing on her toes to kiss him. "That's a pretty ambitious goal, Mr. Sterling." "I'm an ambitious man," he replied with a grin. "Speaking of which, I need to head out. Big presentation with the investors this morning. If this goes well, we can finally launch the solar panel project in Kenya." The call that changed everything. Nora was in her office at Bennett & Torres Design Studio, reviewing blueprints for a new hotel lobby when her phone rang. The name on the screen made her smile. Rachel Torres, her best friend since college and business partner, was supposed to be meeting with a client across town. "Hey, Rach, how did the meeting go?" Nora answered cheerfully. The silence on the other end made her heart skip a beat. "Nora." Rachel's voice was tight, controlled in that way that meant she was trying not to panic. "You need to get to Massachusetts General Hospital right now. It's Vincent." The blueprints slipped from Nora's hands, scattering across her desk. "What happened? Is he okay?" "There was an accident. A truck ran a red light and hit his car. That's all I know. I'm on my way there now. Just drive carefully, okay?" The drive to the hospital existed in Nora's memory as a blur of red lights and silent prayers. Her hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles turned white. She kept thinking about their conversation that morning, about his promise of 80 more years. She needed those years. She needed him. The long wait, the intensive care unit became Nora's entire world. Days dissolved into nights, and nights stretched into endless weeks. Vincent lay motionless in the hospital bed, connected to machines that beeped and hummed, tracking his vital signs. The doctor spoke in careful, measured tones about traumatic brain injuries, induced comas, and uncertain outcomes. Nora refused to leave his side. She slept in the uncomfortable reclining chair beside his bed, ate whatever Rachel brought her, and spent every waking moment talking to Vincent. She told him about her day, about the projects at the design studio, about the small moments of their life together that she clung to like lifelines. "Remember our honeymoon in Santorini?" she whispered one evening, holding his hand between both of hers. "You were so excited to show me the sunset from that cliff. We got lost trying to find it, and by the time we arrived, the sun had already set. But you said it didn't matter because watching me laugh at our terrible navigation skills was better than any sunset." Rachel visited every day, bringing fresh clothes, warm meals, and steady companionship. She sat with Nora during the hardest moments, held her when the fear became too overwhelming, and reminded her to hope when despair threatened to consume everything. Dr. Harrison Webb, the neurologist overseeing Vincent's care, was a man in his 50s with kind eyes and an honest demeanor that Nora appreciated. On the 35th day, he pulled her aside after his morning examination. "Mrs. Sterling, I need to prepare you for something," he began gently. "When patients experience this level of trauma, there can be complications beyond the physical injuries. Memory loss is common. We won't know the extent until he wakes up, but I want you to be ready for any possibility." "But he will wake up?" Nora asked, her voice barely above a whisper. His brain activity is improving. I'm optimistic, but the brain is complex, and recovery is unpredictable. The awakening on the 42nd day. Nora was reading aloud from a business magazine, an article about sustainable technology that she thought Vincent would enjoy. When she felt his fingers twitch against her palm, she stopped mid-sentence, her heart suddenly pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. "Vincent?" she breathed, leaning closer to his face. His eyelids fluttered, then slowly opened. For a moment, his eyes were unfocused, adjusting to the light filtering through the hospital room blinds. Then his gaze cleared, and he looked directly at her. Tears streamed down Nora's face as she pressed the call button for the nurse, while never taking her eyes off her husband. "You're awake. Thank God you're awake." Vincent blinked several times, his brow furrowing as he looked around the sterile hospital room. Medical equipment surrounded him, 4 lines connected to his arm, monitors tracking his vitals. When his eyes returned to Nora's face, she saw confusion there, instead of the recognition she desperately needed. "Where am I?" he asked, his voice rough and unfamiliar from weeks of disuse. "You're in the hospital," Nora explained, trying to keep her voice steady, despite the panic rising in her chest. "You were in a car accident 6 weeks ago. But you're going to be okay now. Everything is going to be okay." Dr. Webb arrived quickly with a team of nurses, immediately beginning his examination. Nora stepped back, giving them space, but never taking her eyes off Vincent. She watched as they checked his responses, asked him questions, tested his reflexes. Through it all, Vincent looked lost and disoriented. When the initial examination was complete, Dr. Webb turned to Nora with an expression that made her blood run cold. He looked at Vincent and asked gently, "Mr. Sterling, do you know who this woman is?" Vincent studied Nora's face carefully. She held her breath, willing him to remember, to recognize her. To say her name with the affection she had heard every single day for 8 years. "Please," she thought desperately. "Please remember me. Remember us?" "No," Vincent finally said, apologetic confusion clear in his voice. "I'm sorry." "Should I know you? Are you one of the doctors?" The words hit Nora like a physical blow. Her vision blurred, and she felt Rachel's arms catch her as her knees buckled. She heard Dr. Webb explaining something about retrograde amnesia, heard Vincent asking questions about what happened to him, but all she could focus on was the polite stranger in her husband's eyes, the man she loved more than anything in the world, the man who had promised her 80 more years, the man who knew every dream in her heart and every scar on her soul, looked at her like she was a complete stranger. And in that moment, Nora understood that their love story would have to begin again, whether he remembered it or not. 3 weeks after Vincent woke up, Nora brought him home to their penthouse. The doctors had cleared him physically, declaring his recovery remarkable, but the mind that housed Vincent Sterling's memories remained, frustratingly blank about everything that mattered most. Nora watched as Vincent walked through their home like a visitor in a museum, examining everything with polite interest, but no emotional connection. He paused at paintings they had bought together on trips around the world, ran his fingers along the spines of books on their shared bookshelf, and studied their wedding photos hanging prominently in the living room. "This is a beautiful place," Vincent said, his tone respectful but distant. "You have excellent taste in design. We chose everything together," Nora replied softly, her throat tight with unshed tears. "Over 8 years, piece by piece, we made this place our home." Vincent turned to look at her, and she saw genuine regret in his eyes. "I'm sorry, I can't remember. Everyone keeps telling me what an incredible life we had together, and I wish I could feel what you're feeling. But when I look at you, all I see is a kind woman who deserves better than this." That night, Vincent insisted on sleeping in the guest room. "It doesn't feel right," he explained apologetically. "Sharing a bed with someone I don't remember? No matter what our marriage certificate says." Nora understood his reasoning, but understanding didn't make the empty space beside her any less painful. She lay in their bed alone, staring at the ceiling, remembering countless nights of whispered conversations, shared dreams, and simple comfort of his presence. Now those memories belonged only to her, and the weight of carrying them alone felt unbearable. Building bridges between past and present, The days developed a routine that was both comforting and heartbreaking. Nora would wake up early, make breakfast for both of them, and they would eat together while making careful conversation. Vincent asked questions about his life, his company, their relationship, and she answered as honestly as she could. She showed him photo albums chronicling their journey together. Their first awkward date at a seafood restaurant where they talked until the staff politely asked them to leave. The weekend trip to Cape Cod where Vincent proposed at sunset, so nervous he almost dropped the ring into the ocean. Their wedding day, both of them crying happy tears during their vows. Vacations to Greece, Japan, Peru, each trip an adventure they had planned together. Vincent listened attentively, sometimes smiling at the stories. But Nora could see he was learning about a stranger's life, not remembering his own. He studied the photos like historical documents, interested but detached. "We looked happy," he observed one evening, examining a picture from their 5th anniversary. They were laughing at something, completely lost in each other. "We were," Nora whispered. "We are." Vincent looked up at her, his expression conflicted. "How can we be happy when I don't even know you? When everything you remember means nothing to me?" Small recognitions Dr. Webb visited their home regularly for follow-up appointments, always searching for signs of memory return. He explained that sometimes memories came back triggered by familiar sensations, scents, or experiences. Other times they returned all at once, and sometimes they never returned at all. "Keep surrounding him with familiar things," Dr. Webb advised Nora during a private conversation. "Maintain routines, revisit meaningful places, be patient. And please, take care of yourself too. This is traumatic for you as well." But how could she take care of herself when watching the man she loved treat her like a polite acquaintance? How could she be patient when every moment, without his recognition, felt like slowly disappearing? Rachel tried to help, insisting Nora continue working on design projects, reminding her that she still had her own identity beyond Vincent's recovery. But everything felt hollow. Her career achievements, her creative successes, none of it mattered when she couldn't share it with the person who had always been her biggest champion. One morning, about 6 weeks after Vincent came home, Nora was making breakfast when she realized she had automatically prepared his coffee exactly how he liked it. Medium roast, 1 sugar, a splash of cream, stirred exactly 20 times. She hadn't even thought about it. Vincent took a sip and paused, his eyes widening slightly. "This is perfect." "How did you know exactly how I like it?" "Because I've made your coffee almost every morning for 8 years, Nora said quietly. "Your tastes, your habits, your preferences, they're all part of me now." Vincent set down his cup, studying her with an intensity she hadn't seen before. "What else do I do? What else am I like?" Nora felt a spark of hope. "You organize your desk with everything at perfect right angles. You can't start working until everything is aligned. You hum when you're concentrating, usually songs you don't even realize you know. You touch your left ear when you're thinking hard about something. You always smell books before you read them because you love the scent of paper and ink." As she spoke, Vincent unconsciously touched his left ear. When he noticed, he let out a surprised laugh. "I've been doing that all week and didn't know why." Moments of connection. Vincent started returning to work, gradually reintroduced by his business partner, Marcus Chen. The work came naturally to him. His business instincts, his innovative thinking, his passion for sustainable technology, all of it remained intact, even though his personal memories were gone. He would come home in the evenings and tell Nora about his day, and she would listen, grateful for these conversations, even if they lacked the intimate understanding they once shared. Sometimes, in these moments, she caught glimpses of the man she married. A particular phrase he used, the way he gestured when excited about an idea, the passion in his voice when discussing projects that could help people. One evening, Vincent was working late in his study when Nora brought him tea. She found him standing by the window, looking out at the city lights, his expression thoughtful and melancholy. "What are you thinking about?" she asked softly. Vincent turned to her, and in the dim light of the study, his face showed a vulnerability she hadn't seen since the accident. "I keep having this feeling like I'm missing something important. Not memories exactly, but something deeper. Like there's a space inside me that should be filled, but I don't know with what." Nora's breath caught. She wanted to tell him that the space was their love, their history, their connection. But instead, she simply said, "Maybe it's not about remembering. Maybe it's about feeling." "What do you mean?" "Before the accident, you told me once that you didn't fall in love with me because of grand gestures or perfect moments. You fell in love because of the small things, the way I hummed while working, how I always forgot to close cabinet doors, the fact that I cried at dog food commercials. Maybe your mind doesn't remember those things, but maybe some other part of you does." Vincent was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "You hum when you work. I've noticed. And yesterday I found 3 cabinets open in the kitchen after you left for your office." I smiled without knowing why. Tears filled Nora's eyes. "Did you?" "Yes. And last week we were watching television, and a commercial came on with a puppy, and you started crying. I found myself reaching for your hand before I even thought about it. It felt like the most natural thing in the world." Nora moved closer to him, not touching, but near enough to feel his warmth. "Vincent, I know this is hard for you. I know you don't remember our life together. But the core of who you are, the man I fell in love with, he's still there. I can see him in everything you do. How can you be so sure?" Vincent asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "How can you love someone who doesn't remember loving you back?" "Because love isn't just about memory," Nora replied, her voice steady, despite the tears on her cheeks. "It's about choice. And every day, I choose you. Every day, I choose to believe that what we had was strong enough to survive this. And one day, whether you remember or not, I hope you'll choose me too." Vincent looked at her for a long moment, and Nora saw something shift in his expression. Not recognition, not memory, but something equally important. A beginning. "I think," he said slowly, "I might already be choosing you. I just didn't realize it yet." Dr. Webb suggested various therapies to help trigger Vincent's memories. They visited places from their past: the seafood restaurant where they had their first date, the beach in Cape Cod where he proposed, the small church where they were married. Vincent walked through these locations with genuine interest, listening to Nora's stories, but nothing sparked recognition. They looked through more photo albums, watched videos from their wedding and various vacations, even met with old friends who shared their own memories of Vincent and Nora's relationship. Marcus Chen visited often, regaling Vincent with stories of their business partnership. The late night spent perfecting their first product, the celebration when they landed their first major contract. Rachel tried to sharing memories of double dates, game nights, and the elaborate surprise party Nora had thrown for Vincent's 30th birthday. "You cried," Rachel told him with a grin. "Nora spent 3 months planning it, and when you walked in and saw everyone you loved in one room, you actually cried." Vincent smiled at the story, touched by the obvious care that had gone into the event. But he couldn't connect to the emotion of that moment. It was like reading about someone else's life in a book, interesting. But distant, Nora tried not to let the disappointment show. She maintained her optimism for Vincent's sake, but at night, alone in their bed, she allowed herself to grieve. The doctors had warned that he might never remember, that she might need to accept a future where their past existed only in her mind. A quiet evening for months after the accident. On a cold February evening, Nora was cleaning their apartment while Vincent read in his study. She had spent the day at a client meeting, presenting designs for a new art gallery, and felt exhausted but restless. Without thinking much about it, she turned on their old sound system, the one they had bought together at a vintage electronics shop in Cambridge. She had loaded it with playlists they had created over the years, songs that marked different moments in their relationship. The music filled the apartment softly, an eclectic mix of jazz, indie rock, and classic love songs. Nora moved around the living room, straightening pillows and organizing the coffee table books, letting the music wash over her like a familiar embrace. When "The Way You Look Tonight" began playing, Nora froze. This had been their wedding song, the one they had danced to as husband and wife for the first time. She remembered every detail of that moment, the way Vincent had held her close, whispering the lyrics in her ear, the way everyone else had faded away until it felt like they were the only two people in the world. She moved to turn it off. not wanting to cause Vincent any discomfort with a memory he couldn't access. But before she could reach the speaker, she heard his voice. "Wait," Vincent called from the study doorway. "Don't turn it off." The melody of memory. Nora turned to find Vincent standing there, one hand braced against the doorframe. His face pale, but his eyes intense, focused. He walked slowly into the living room, moving toward the speaker as if drawn by an invisible thread. "This song," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "I know this song. It's Frank Sinatra," Nora replied carefully, hardly daring to hope. "The Way You Look Tonight. It's a classic." "No, I mean I know it differently. Not just the song, but something about it. Something important." Vincent pressed his hand to his chest, right over his heart. "It feels like something is breaking open inside me." Nora watched as he closed his eyes, listening to the music. The lyrics floated through the room, romantic and timeless, and she saw tears forming beneath his closed eyelids. "We danced to this," Vincent whispered. "Didn't we? I can almost see it. A big room, lots of people, but all I could see was you. You were wearing something white and beautiful, and you were crying happy tears. Your hands were shaking when I held them, and I remember thinking I was the luckiest man alive." "Our wedding," Nora breathed, her own tears flowing freely now. "This was our wedding song." Vincent opened his eyes, and for the first time since the accident, Nora saw real recognition there. Not complete, not perfect, but something awakening. "I promised you something that day. About making you fall in love with me every single day. For 80 years. Oh my God," Nora whispered, covering her mouth with her hand. "Vincent, you remember?" "Not everything," he said quickly, taking a tentative step toward her. "It's like trying to see through fog. I get flashes, moments, feelings. But this song, Nora, when I hear this song, I remember how it felt to love you. I remember that it was the biggest, most important thing in my life." The song continued playing, and Vincent extended his hand toward her. "Dance with me? Maybe it will help me remember more." Nora didn't hesitate. She stepped into his arms, and the moment they touched, she felt him relax against her. They swayed together in the middle of their living room, just as they had done countless times before, and Nora felt like she could finally breathe again. "Tell me everything," Vincent murmured against her hair. "Tell me about us, and maybe the memories will come back." So as they danced, Nora talked. She told him about their first meeting at the charity auction, how he had bid a ridiculous amount on a dinner date with her, just to get her attention. She told him about their first kiss in the rain after a movie, how they had both laughed at the cliché of it. She described their proposal at sunset, his nervous speech that he had practiced for weeks but then forgot completely, making it up as he went. With each story, she felt Vincent's grip on her tighten. His breathing changed, became irregular, and she realized he was crying. "I remember the rain," he said suddenly. "You tasted like popcorn and cherry soda from the movie theater. And you laughed when I kissed you, and I asked why. And you said, because you had been waiting for me to do that all night." "Yes," Nora sobbed, holding him tighter. "Yes, exactly that." Coming home over the next hours, as they played song after song from their collection, more memories surfaced. Not all at once, not in perfect chronological order, but in fragments and flashes that grew stronger with each familiar melody. Vincent remembered their honeymoon in Santorini, getting lost, trying to find the perfect sunset spot. He remembered the night he told Nora he loved her for the first time, over mushroom risotto in their first tiny apartment. He remembered her face when she showed him the positive pregnancy test last year, and the crushing heartbreak they shared when she miscarried at 8 weeks. "I'm so sorry," he whispered, pulling her close as that particular memory surfaced. "I'm so sorry I forgot that we went through that together. That you had to carry that pain alone all these months." "You're here now," Nora replied, clinging to him. "That's what matters. You came back to me." Dr. Webb, called in for an emergency consultation, was amazed. "Music can be a powerful trigger," he explained, running tests and examinations. "It's processed in different parts of the brain than other memories. Sometimes it can unlock things that seemed permanently lost." "Will all his memories come back?" Nora asked, still holding Vincent's hand like a lifeline. "It's hard to say." What you're experiencing, Mr. Sterling, is remarkable, but not complete. Some memories may never return, while others might surface gradually over time. The important thing is that you've made a breakthrough. Vincent squeezed Nora's hand. Even if I never remember everything, I remember the most important thing now. I remember loving you. I remember choosing you every single day. And I promise you, Nora, whether my memories are complete or not, I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving to you that our love survived this. 6 months after the accident, Vincent and Nora stood on the beach in Cape Cod, the same beach where he had proposed 8 years earlier. The sunset painted the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks, and the sound of waves provided a peaceful soundtrack to their moment. Not all my memories have come back, Vincent said. Turning to face Nora, there are still gaps. Moments I know happened, but can't quite reach. But I don't think that matters anymore. Why not? Nora asked, though she already knew the answer. She could see it in his eyes, in the way he looked at her now with complete recognition and love. Because every day with you feels like falling in love for the first time. Whether I'm remembering old moments or creating new ones, it all feels the same. It all feels like coming home. Vincent pulled a small box from his pocket, and Nora gasped. Inside was her original engagement ring, the one she had taken off and saved when he didn't remember her. Nora Bennett-Sterling, he said, taking her hand, I know I already married you once. I know we've built a life together, survived the worst thing we could imagine, and came out stronger on the other side. But I want to ask you again, with full knowledge of who you are and what you mean to me, will you marry me? Will you keep choosing me, even when life gets hard? Will you dance with me to our song for the next 80 years? Through happy tears, Nora nodded. Yes. Always yes. As Vincent slipped the ring back onto her finger, music drifted toward them from a nearby beach restaurant, and like fate had orchestrated it perfectly. The opening notes of The Way You Look Tonight floated on the ocean breeze. They danced together on the beach at sunset. And Nora knew that this moment, this memory, would stay with both of them forever. Not because it was perfect, but because it represented everything they had overcome, every fear they had faced, and every choice they had made to fight for their love. Some love stories end when memories fade, but theirs had proven that true love lives deeper than memory, stronger than trauma, and more powerful than anything that tries to tear it apart. Their love story wasn't ending. It was just beginning again, one melody at a time. The end.